Yeah, midweek edition of Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf with you from the Everlight Solar Studio downtown Madison at the ESPN Madison offices. Thanks for being with us on this Wednesday ahead of Wildcard weekend. Dude, it's crazy. It feels like every single year the NFL season goes faster. Like, I imagine I'm not alone in that takeaway, right? Like, it feels like it goes faster and faster and faster every year. I know it always flies by quicker than any 18-week period that I look at. Not that I really measure my life in 18-week periods, but this one obviously you do. And it just seems every year that it goes by quicker. And here we are already, Wild Card weekend, as the 7th-seeded Green Bay Packers get ready to take on the 2nd-seeded Dallas Cowboys. With me, as always, is self-proclaimed producer Tiny Hands Hunter Vaughn, our resident Dallas Cowboys fan. What's up, Hunter? How are you?
I'm good. I'm
okay.
Less nervous about the game, but not because I'm confident in the Cowboys.
You're less nervous than you were Monday?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's just kind of set in, like, okay, it's midweek. Like, I can't worry about this on a Wednesday.
Oh, you sure can, and I probably will make you. So
yeah, I am.
Does it make you nervous you're going up against the back-to-back NFC Offensive Player of the Week, Jordan Love?
No, if you would have somehow said that was Aaron Jones, yes, because with Aaron Jones,
Cowboy
the Packers are 3-0, and he averages like 150 yards a game.
Yep.
And that's not even me exaggerating. I know for a fact it's 6 yards a carry.
Yeah, no,
like, you can't win a game playing against that.
He's had a nice year so far, especially in his return. And, yeah, first time in his career he's gone over 100 yards in 3 straight games, which Aaron Jones has. We know his history with the Dallas Cowboys, his career-high 4-touchdown game a couple of years back for Aaron Jones. So there's some history here. And Aaron Jones, by the way, one of the few players on this Packers roster that was at one point coached by Cowboys head coach Mike McCarthy. There's not a ton of players left on the Packers roster that were coached by McCarthy in his final season in 2018, like Rashawn Gary and Darnell Savage were, but not for very long because that was their rookie year and McCarthy was fired towards the end of the season. Aaron Jones is one of them. Kenny Clark's one of them. Jair had him for a year and a half. But there's not a lot of like deep-rooted history anymore, which is kind of sad for this Mike McCarthy versus the Packers angle. It would carry a lot more juice, of course, if Aaron Rodgers was still the quarterback. But I kind of love like the setup of it is the new era of the Green Bay Packers versus the last guy that brought them to the promised land, and Mike McCarthy, who obviously won the Super Bowl back in the 2010 season. So this game has some juice. There are other games in the NFL, in my opinion, that have more juice, right? You have the Deshaun Watson Bowl without Deshaun Watson between the Browns and the Texans. And just overall, to me, that's a really fun game, so I'm looking forward to that one on Saturday. Of course, you have the biggest storyline is Stafford Goff versus their old teams. Stafford in Detroit. But Stafford in Detroit didn't leave on bad terms, right? Like, he's a legend. He's one of the all-time Lions. And he left to go get his Super Bowl, which he ultimately did. Whereas Jared Goff was totally blindsided by that trade, right? Like, he thought he was the Rams quarterback. He was a number 1 overall pick, and then he's sent to Detroit. So Jared Goff playing pissed off is actually the angle I'm most intrigued by in that game. Of course, you have the Tyreek Hill game. You have Dolphins-Chiefs. Tyreek Hill facing his old team for the second time this season. Those two teams played in Frankfurt, Germany earlier in the year. Chiefs won 21-14 in that game. So close game. Two teams that are not as good as we probably thought they were going to be at the beginning of the season. I thought those were the two top dogs in the AFC. I don't feel that way anymore. I think Baltimore is not only the best team in the AFC, they are the best team in the league, and I don't think it's close. I'm very high on the Baltimore Ravens. They're obviously on bye this week. So there's a ton of fun storylines in the NFL this week. The scriptwriters did a 10 out of 10 bang-up job for Wild Card weekend. But we're talking about the Packers in Wild Card weekend. And I know Monday was a lot of reaction to the Bears, and I talked a lot about how we got there, right? Like the roller coaster of a season that it was for the Green Bay Packers. Here they are as a playoff team, winners of 3 in a row. And I pointed this out during the Packers' last win streak, but my friend William on Twitter came back at me this morning. He said, @Alex_Strouf, I'd like to remind you about your bold prediction of the prior to the season of the Packers losing streak of 4 and a winning streak of 4. There's 4 games potentially left this year. I would take that streak. That would obviously be 7 wins in a row for the Packers. That prediction will be right if the Packers win this weekend. So just a little pat on the back to me for being a frickin' genius. So, but anyway, to my point here. I don't think we anticipated, even after that Carolina game on Christmas Eve, which the Packers squeaked out, 3-point win, 33-30 over Carolina, that we'd be here a couple weeks later talking about the Packers being in the playoffs. It's a season that didn't have a lot of expectations, which is why I've continued to call it some of the most fun I've had watching Packers football. The entire season hasn't been the most fun I've had watching Packers football, but there has been more moments this year where I've gone, holy shit, that was awesome, than I ever have before. Like, even in losses, I think back to that Pittsburgh Steelers game, which is really where this turnaround began, especially for Jordan Love. And he made multiple throws in that game where I went, oh, there might be something here with him, actually. Because we were kind of in that tweener area, right? Like, we knew he could be good. We didn't think he could be great, but he could be good enough. And, you know, maybe this is just a 2-year experiment with Jordan Love at that point. And then he was making those flashes, and you're going, oh, okay. And then you saw him beat Detroit and Kansas City and missed the Chargers before them. And, you know, he's making these throws and not turning the ball over, and his accuracy is better. His timing is better. His completion percentage was going up every single game. He completed, 84% of his passes on Sunday against the Bears. So Jordan Love has gone from nice surprise beginning of the season to, okay, back to, oh my goodness, the Packers did it again. Like, we are in straight up superstar territory at this point. And I don't know if he'll be able to maintain that, especially as he goes up against a good Cowboys defense, a really good Cowboys team, well-coached Cowboys team by Mike McCarthy. But Jordan Love has now won 2 straight NFC Offensive Players of the Week. That doesn't happen unless you are playing terrific football. And I don't want to understate this. Jordan Love, as of late, has been playing terrific football, which, again, that's what makes this season so fun. Because if you would have told me in October Jordan Love is leading the charge in the final 10 games, he'll go 7-3 and lead the Packers to a playoff spot, I probably would have told you you're nuts. Like, I just don't see how that's going to happen. So I just can't underplay the turnaround that this Packers offense has had, both leading them to a playoff spot and by Jordan Love. The turnaround is unheard of, miraculous, nothing short of miraculous, really, really cool stuff. So I am just so jacked up on this turnaround and the way Jordan Love has played. As I just mentioned, now his second NFC Offensive Player of the Week award in as many weeks. It's really impressive. And for us to have no doubts as Packers fans that Jordan Love is the dude for the future, like, that is the absolute best case scenario, which leads me to my next point here. The argument of house money. So I did a hit on SportsMap Radio this morning, which is like a nationwide sports radio company. And I just talked. They asked me a bunch about the Packers, and they brought up the phrase house money. And it's something I've talked about before, given how expectations change. I just don't buy into house money. Like, if the Packers lose big on Sunday, it's not the end of the world. You're right. But I also want to see the Packers come in to Sunday and win, and win big, and find a way in which they can survive and advance, right? So that's just meh to me, house money. I get it, but I want to see the Packers peak now. Oh, give me more hope for next season, because obviously we could sit here and say, they overshot expectations and the youth movement came together sooner than we expected. Yeah, it did, and that's true. But now you're 0-0, facing a 0-0 team with a win or go home scenario again. How cool would it be for the Packers to get one this year? How much more faith would that give you for the 2024 season? Like, Jim Rutledge makes a lot of bad points. Jim Rutledge of Rutledge and Hamilton, we had him on the show last week to talk Bears. He makes a lot of bad points. One he made this week, and I don't want to focus too much on it because I want to talk more about the hype and the excitement around this playoff game. But one point he made this week is enjoy not having expectations while you can, because next season there's already expectations that you should be competing for division titles. And he's right. This was the one season And I thought this would be at least a 2-year deal. But this was the one season for sure you had where if the Packers went 4-13 or 9-8, it is what it is, right? Like, it's just, that's what happened. That's how the cards fell. Great. But now as you look ahead to next year, you have all these young guns humming on offense, including the quarterback. Those expectations now for next year are much higher, but I'm not going to focus on next year until we have to focus on next year. I'm focused on Sunday. I'm focused on this week. I'm focused on the fact that the Green Bay Packers are a playoff team. That is still beyond my wildest dreams where we were in October. So the turnaround is just so neat. And the Packers, in theory, are playing with house money. Really, they have nothing to lose except their playoff hopes. You could have made the same argument in 2010 when they won the Super Bowl, that they were playing with house money. And they played with house money really well. But it's not house money when it's your money. It's your money now. You're a playoff team. You made this bet. You earned this. You're here for a reason. So now's your just a phenomenal opportunity to go and freaking compete, man, and go get a W against your former head coach on the road in a stadium you have traditionally played really well in, a stadium in which you won a Super Bowl in. So I think the Packers, and I said this on Monday, but I really do believe the Packers have a real chance to win this game on Sunday and make one hell of an impact. And how cool would it be for Jordan Love? How cool would it be for Jordan Love to not only outperform the guy he took the job from or took the job over for in Aaron Rodgers, right? He beat him in every statistical category from a year ago. And I get he was playing with a broken thumb, and I get he was playing with hurt ribs, and I get it was a bad season for Aaron Rodgers. I understand all that. But Jordan Love replaced him this year and immediately outperformed him from a year ago. In yards, in touchdowns, he threw less interceptions. Completion percentage was right in the same ballpark. More wins under his record, right? 9-8 versus 8-9. He outperformed Aaron Rodgers in every category. How cool would it be to not only win the game that Aaron Rodgers couldn't a year ago, which is the Week 18 win in your in game, but how cool would it be in your first playoff game to get a win on the road? Like, how big of a notch in the belt for Jordan Love would that be? It'd be huge. It'd be ginormous. So that I am really, really fired up about the opportunity here. And if he loses, he loses. But the hope is he plays well and he gets a win. And that even further solidifies the argument that 10 is the dude. 10 is him, as the kids say. You could only further the argument that Jordan Love is that dude on Sunday. So that makes me excited. One last note before we get to our friend Jason Wilde, who's going to join us to provide a ton of really fun analysis on Love in this season and comparing this season to other seasons he's covered. Because I imagine, and I don't mean to speak for Jason, but I imagine this is a season unlike any other one he's faced or covered before in his 25-plus years on the beat. Like, this is the wackiest and most fun he's had covering this team, I would imagine. So really excited to get his perspective on all that in a moment. But I know for a fact, speaking for Jason, one of his favorite people he's ever covered and had a relationship with is Mike McCarthy, who is now the head coach of the Cowboys. And this is a really big game for him. It is a much bigger game for Mike McCarthy than it is for Matt LaFleur on Sunday. Matt LaFleur has gone through a tumultuous season by all means, right? He was a guy that was a betting favorite to be the next head coach fired after Josh McDaniels was in Vegas. He's a guy that I know a lot of Packers fans during that 4-game losing streak in October were questioning whether or not Matt LaFleur was the right option as the head coach of this football team. And it is clear now, as he's helped this offense turn it around and lead them to a playoff spot, that Matt LaFleur's job is safe, no matter the result on Sunday. You cannot say the same thing about Mike McCarthy. While I imagine after winning an NFC East title, his job security is better, I would not be shocked if Jerry Jones makes a move if Mike McCarthy is to lose this game on Sunday. And I like Mike McCarthy. I think Mike McCarthy is a good head coach in the NFL. But to have continued failure in the same spots over and over again, you might have to look at a change. So, Hunter, I hate to get negative on you, but as a Cowboys fan, I'm curious on your thoughts. Is there a way in which Mike McCarthy could lose his job this weekend?
Yeah, if they lose.
Do you think he's gone regardless? If they lose, is he gone?
Yeah, I think so. especially considering the Carolina Panthers requested permission to interview Dan Quinn. The players love Dan Quinn, the defensive coordinator.
So it could just be an internal promotion if he is, if they are to move on. That's interesting. So,
I mean, they'll obviously go through and like interview other people, but they don't want to lose Dan Quinn. I mean, he may end up getting a pay raise if McCarthy even stays. So I think there's a fear of losing him.
So, but wasn't there a similar case with Kellen Moore, who's in LA now? He was the Chargers offensive coordinator this year. There was a similar case with him too, right? Like the internal pressure for Mike McCarthy was because his coordinators are doing a good job. Is that still the case here with Dan Quinn?
Yeah, that's still the case with this team, and most of the fan base is like, we got to get to an NFC Championship game. Like, that is the bar for this team, and I think if they can figure out a way to win and somehow slow down Aaron Jones, I think that's the path they would be on, is to at least get to there.
Okay.
But if he can't get to an NFC Championship game, like even if they win this week and they then lose in the divisional round, I think there's a chance he loses his job.
Wow. So
if it's a bad, ugly
his job
loss,
is not secure at all.
No, because it's just, this is not acceptable for this franchise.
Well, it hasn't been acceptable for 35 years at this point.
Yes, but the point is like Jerry's also getting to a point where he knows he's only got a couple more playoff runs left.
Okay.
I've made the joke about it that things may not change until he leaves this earth, and I say that jokingly, and I know it's morbid, but that's how Cowboys fans have gotten to with Jerry Jones as an owner.
I am so fascinated by the way your brain works. It's really something else.
It is morbid, and I don't mean to get dark, but it's the truth.
It's dark.
Things probably won't change for the Dallas Cowboys until Stephen Jones, Jerry's oldest son, takes over. And then, unfortunately, probably not going to change.
Probably more of the same. All right. Well, I did that. Wow. I'm almost speechless. That is not the way in which I saw that one going. All right, well, let's get to our friend Jason Wilde coming up next. But first, got to tell you about Green Bay Game Day coming up on Sunday. We will be live at the 3rd Street Market Hall in Milwaukee, getting you ready for Packers Cowboys beginning at noon on 620 WTMJ, 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee, and 100.5 ESPN in Madison. We got a full house. We got a full crew coming up on Sunday. So I will be joined by my normal cast of characters, of course, Kyle Wallace, Torty Lowe. Gabe Neitzel will join us for the entirety of Sunday's show as well. So it's the four of us. And then, of course, you got Jason Wilde, who we'll speak to in a minute. He will join us in the 1 o'clock hour, but we've got these for guests. Get ready for this. Ready? We've got Rob Demovsky, per usual. Former Packers tight end Mark Chamorro will join us. Former Packers running back Gary Ellerson will join us. Former Packers right tackle Brian Bulaga will join us on the program. Greg Matzik from WTMJ will join us on the show, as well as former NFL punter Brad Nortman will join us on the show. So you got all that. We've got like 11 people joining us on the program. We're having a party. We're getting ready. High energy, good vibes only on Green Bay Game Day beginning at noon this upcoming Sunday. Again, on 620 WTMJ, 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee, 100.5 ESPN Madison, and on YouTube as well, the ESPN Milwaukee stream, ESPN Madison stream. We will do that all day Sunday. And I imagine, like, we've got a ton of storylines to talk about, including what I just went over, Mike McCarthy and Jordan Love and Matt LaFleur and the season's turnaround. So we will get into all of that coming up on Sunday. All right, we await Jason Wilde, who will be joining us momentarily to break down all things Packers. I'm really excited for this conversation. I always love when he hops on and joins us on here. And he's a busy dude. I know there's a ton going on in Green Bay today. So Hunter, what's going on? Have you touched base with Jason? Jason going to join us?
I did touch base with him. He's just running a little bit behind. I mean, it's playoff season. This happens. So.
I appreciate him taking the time regardless. Yeah. Okay, so can we remove the morbidness of what you just said? Where are your nerves at? Because we talked about it on Monday's show. Like, you were kind of – I've always referred to you as a doomsday fan, right? Like, you are absolutely doomsday, worst-case scenario fan always. That's how you roll. You know the history of the Packers and the Cowboys, especially in playoffs over the course of the last 15 years-ish, regular season and playoffs. Cowboys have only won once, and that was Dak Prescott's first start in this rivalry, quote-unquote. Since then, it's all Packers. Before that, it was all Packers. You know the Packers own the Cowboys for the most part.
Except for that stretch in the 90s, but yeah.
Right, I'm saying since then. Nerves are where?
This franchise has broken my heart so many times. This is now 28 years if they don't go to the NFC Championship game of not getting to the conference championship. And this will tie with the Giants and Washington for their longest stretch of not going to a Super Bowl even after this year. And it's just exhausting. So I expect all of the worst things to happen because I've seen a lot of the worst things happen. I've seen this team lose in 3 straight years to go 8-8 and a chance to win the division to literally the other 3 teams in the division. I've seen Des Bryant catch a ball, take 2 steps, then make a move to the end zone, diving for the goal line, and say, possession. Nope, there's no possession there, which is absolutely absurd to me. I've seen it happen. So I just expect they're going to find a new way to disappoint me and break my heart and just rip it out. And I'm going to, like a psychopath, come back next year and be singing We Dem Boys and say, this is our year. This is our year. They'll finally do it again.
Doomsday fan.
Won't do it.
Doomsday fan always.
I know.
Doomsday fan always.
I'm psychotic and I hate it. It's the worst.
I'm psychotic and I hate it. That was beautifully said. Real quick before we get to Jason, Bill on YouTube says, would it be worth to bring Luke Getsy in next year in case any coaches leave? Luke Getsy, of course, the former Packers quarterback coach, offensive coordinator, now in Chicago. He was the play caller there, was fired today. My answer to that is simply no. No, I'm good without him. Let's bring in our friend, our teammate, Jason Wilde, 3-time Wisconsin Sports Writer of the Year. He's with me each and every week on Green Bay Game Day, right before every Green Bay game, including this Sunday, ahead of a wild card game, which I still think is bananas that is the reality we live in following a 2-5 start to the season. Jason Wilde, how are you, my friend? Good to see you.
Have you been, I guess I don't need this microphone.
You don't?
Have you been wearing that nonstop since Sunday? Because the last time I saw you in person, that's exactly what you were wearing.
Yeah, so Jason's referring to my Jordan Love jersey that I have on. No, so it has been worn every day, but not by me. So what that means is I wore it Sunday, and then Monday morning I get a text from Ryan Wollersheim, who is the producer of Rutledge and Hamilton.
Primetime Wollersheim.
Primetime Wollersheim, indeed. And he said, hey, Rutledge has to wear a Packers jersey all week. Can you bring in your Jordan Love jersey? I said, yeah. So I brought it in, unwashed, of course, on Monday. Rutledge wore it Monday. He wore it Tuesday. I got into the studio today, and I saw it was just laying on a chair. And Hunter said to me before the show, hey, you told me you were going to wear Packers stuff every day this week. Pop that jersey on. So I'm wearing it again today, and I assume Jim Rutledge will then wear it again later today. So, no, I have not worn it every day, but somebody has.
But at no juncture has it been washed.
No juncture at all. It probably stinks. It's probably got some pit stains and all the in-between. So, yeah, but it's good luck, right? Like, people that believe in superstition don't wash their jerseys after wins.
You think Jordan Love washed his jersey?
Do they use the same jersey every week? No. They get new jerseys every week, right?
No, they wear the same jersey. Unless they give it away, they wear the same jersey. Yep.
Oh, really?
And I'm very confident
that he washed
Jordan Love's jersey was washed, and he's back-to-back Offensive Player of the Week.
Yeah.
So I don't think washing your jersey is necessarily bad luck if the guy whose actual name is on the back. I mean, he doesn't wash it himself. He's not taking it home. I know
Right.
Ronica is off to San Diego for the start of her pro volleyball season, but he's not down in the basement of his apartment complex or wherever they live washing the jersey in the laundry room. Somebody's doing it for him, but it is clean.
Okay, but also we should point out he wore different jerseys 2 weeks. He won Offensive Player of the Week because he was on the road for week 17 and home for week 18.
One road, sure, okay, yeah, that's true. Good point.
I've got the road jersey on today because they're going on the road Sunday. So hold on. So the big question I have for you, Jason, since the last time we talked, this team has completely turned it around. Jordan Love has completely turned it around. You mentioned his back-to-back Offensive Players of the Week. He's been better than pretty much every quarterback in the league the last 8 weeks. Do you remember ever seeing a turnaround? And I'm not talking strictly Packers, Jason. I'm talking league-wide. A turnaround like the one we've seen, both from Jordan Love and the Packers as a whole, to go from a 2-5 team to go 7-3 in their last 10 and squeak into the playoffs with 3 straight wins, and undoubtedly now know that Jordan Love is the dude. The turnaround from where we last spoke on this show in October is unlike anything I remember.
Yeah, I think it's the confluence of all those different aspects of it because, look, the 2016 team was 4-6 and won 8 in a row to reach the NFC Championship game. That was the best turnaround I'd ever seen. Now, Tausch was on the 04 team that started 1-4 and finished 10-6, so that was a great turnaround. But nothing that has happened where there's been a great turnaround and it's been done with a new quarterback and a bunch of new young players. There haven't been any other scenarios that I can recall where that's occurred because it so rarely happens, right? And so certainly in Packers history, but probably in league history, the confluence of all those turns around, of the team's success, of the quarterback's success. Look, Aaron Rodgers, to me anyway, never looked as bad as Jordan Love looked in the first 2 years in the offseason and in training camp. Like, he had a long way to go. And if we're being honest, he didn't look great during the first, he looked good in the first game. He looked good for 3 quarters, or somewhat good for 3 quarters in Atlanta. He was good for 1 quarter against the Saints.
New Orleans, yep.
And then they went on that 4-game losing streak when he didn't look so great at all, right? And so I think when you look at the turnaround, it's all of those factors that make it probably close to, if not completely unprecedented in the league.
Is this the most memorable season, not in terms of wins and losses, but in terms of just the uncertainty that you've covered in your 25-plus years on the beat?
Yeah, it's been the most fascinating, which I predicted it would be, but it had a lot of different ways it could have been fascinating, including they go 4-13. Jordan Love is not the guy, and now they're suddenly in the discussion to be drafting Drake May or Caleb Williams or whomever. I'm glad that didn't happen because I don't find that compelling. I had some colleagues that when they were 2-5 were kind of hoping they would just keep losing because it would be really interesting to see what they would do faced with the dilemma that basically the Bears have about, do we stick with the guy we've got and let him continue to grow, or do we say we're done with this guy, we're going to go get the theoretical can't-miss prospect, which of course we know no one is a can't-miss prospect.
That's correct.
So it's been fascinating. It's been, I tell people this all the time. They don't understand nor care, which is why I try not to bring it up if I don't have to. I'm not a fan. I don't cheer for the team. There are people that I like that I'm happy to see them succeed, Jordan being one of them. There are stories that are really compelling that I root for to occur. And I did not root for this story to occur this way because I didn't think it would occur this way. It's a little hard to root for. Yeah, Jordan Love over the final 8 games is going to throw 18 touchdowns and 1 pick. His passer rating is going to be 112.7. His completion rate is going to be 70.3%. The same guy who was at 57% when things were going poorly. The head coach is going to realize, I got to stop playing it safe with these guys. If I'm going to tell Jordan to let it rip, I got to let it rip. None of these things are what I necessarily envisioned, but it's been awesome to tell those stories again and again. The next story that I'm excited to tell is the juxtaposition of how the last quarterback led toward the end of his career. I think that's important to include, not throughout his career, but certainly there was guys were afraid of him. And I think the guys now, they're not afraid of Jordan Love. They're afraid of disappointing Jordan Love. And so I want to try and get into that a little bit. I want to find out more about these Monday dinners he's been hosting and whether or not now that Ronica's gone, if he's having to do all the legwork himself or how that's working out. But it has been an incredibly entertaining, fascinating. If you are a storyteller, which I consider myself to be, it's been an awesome year to get to tell the stories. And it could have been a really crappy year to tell stories because no one's really all that interested in, they went 5-12 and they're going to be picking 6th. That's not that compelling.
No, and I always make fun of Hunter for being a doomsday fan, but I was certainly in my doomsday mode in the middle of that 4-game losing streak, right? Like I was already looking at mock drafts in October, Jason, and now I'm looking at a playoff game on Sunday. It's just fascinating to me how they turn this around and how smoothly it's gone over the course of the last 10 weeks. 7-3, and you just rattled off the stats for Jordan Love. Like it's ridiculous to me. So when it comes to storytelling, and you just brought it up, you got a pretty good one to tell on Sunday. Obviously, the Packers facing their former head coach that led them to a Super Bowl. There's a street named after him in Green Bay, and that's Mike McCarthy, who Hunter and I were just discussing, is still kind of on the hot seat in his current position in Dallas as he faces his former team, which could, in theory, be his final game, could be the final nail in the coffin for him. But not to go negative, it is a pretty cool storyline where the top two touchdown passers in the league go head-to-head, and Dak Prescott and Jordan Love, and obviously Mike McCarthy faces his former franchise. Couldn't have been much better of a wild card matchup for the Packers, huh? From a storytelling perspective, at least.
Yeah, except for the fact that Mike McCarthy's not going to help us tell that story.
Yeah, I saw that.
Look,
what's up with that?
Here's one of the great things about Mike. He is honest to a fault. And I don't know if I would have confessed to allowing last year when he returned to Green Bay for the first time as the coach of an opposing team. I'm not sure a lot of coaches would be admitting this time around, yeah, I really screwed that up. I embraced the questions about it. I answered them all. I allowed that to be the narrative. That did not help us last year, I believe his quote was. So he has shut that down. And I'll tell you what, Mike McCarthy doesn't shut down questions very often. Like he has this compulsion to try and, God help him, help reporters that have questions. If he can answer them, he's kind of like Holmgren that way. Like Holmgren was a great anecdote teller, and he totally understood the job. And during the back half of McCarthy's career, kind of Super Bowl on, he really got it. Him telling the story about having the guys size their rings the night before the Super Bowl, right? Like, he was a really good storyteller. And I'm sure that there is part of him that it's hard for him to say, I'm not going to do this. It's a special place. They still have their house here, everything else, but I'm not going to get into it. And he was adamant with the beat writers down there. He's not doing it again. And so, yeah, it's a great story, but he's not going to help us tell it. And I think that's almost more interesting, right? That, all right, We've been through the Mike McCarthy returns to Green Bay. Now he's facing his former team for a second time. I don't think, and I think it's also different because the quarterback is different.
Correct.
He's got no connection to Jordan Love. He was long gone by the time Jordan was drafted here. So I think it is a different story. It's also in Dallas as opposed to the game being here. But, there's a certain star of our program and of ESPN Madison who may have suggested on today's program that the 49ers are obviously, as the number one seed, the favorite in the NFC to win, but that he thinks the next most likely team to advance to the Super Bowl from the NFC is whoever wins this game. And then, I'm not going there, but he kind of went there. So we'll see what happens in Packers Cowboys. I see a path for the Packers to win, but I see them having to play really good defense, which I don't know if they can do against an actual really good offense. And I see them having to play flawless football with a bunch of young guys playing in their first playoff game. And I don't care if you keep telling me that, the last three games were like playoff games. Sure. Against non-playoff teams. Not the same. Sorry.
I have a hard time believing you will do this for me, but I'm going to ask you to draw parallels between this team and the 2010 team that won the Super Bowl as the final team in the NFC to make the playoffs. Can you draw any parallels between those two teams?
Yeah, they both beat the Bears in the finale.
Any others?
No. I mean, Greg Jennings was coming into his own. Jordy Nelson was in his third NFL season. Not his first, not his second, and came on late in the year, setting the stage for a monster 2011. They certainly overcame injuries that year, but their defense was awesome. They're top five. They took the ball away constantly. They had a Hall of Fame corner on their team. This team has none of that. Jordan Love, as great as he's been in the last 8 games, is not in the same place that Aaron Rodgers was in 2010. Now, he might be in that same place in 2024 or 2025, but he's not there now. That is, Mike McCarthy would call that a convenient comparison.
Convenient comparison. I'm just trying to get hyped up, and I got to give you credit because you are horrible at doing that for me. Right? Like anytime I ever ask you to get me hyped up for something, you just play like, I don't know. It's not like you're a shitty friend or teammate or anything, but like you just.
Can you swear on this podcast?
Yeah, you ask me that every time you come on here. I've
only been on one other time.
Well, you also asked me that time if you could swear on this podcast. So, but you just like suck at getting me fired up. Because
Whoa, Stroufy.
I always, yeah, right. I always go back to July 7th when you, myself, and Gabe Neitzel were in our 94.5 ESPN Milwaukee trailer at Summerfest, and we were doing our annual State of the Packers show. And I went in optimistic, right? Like I was like, maybe Jordan Love can be the guy. Maybe some of these young guys can pop off, and maybe they could rattle off an 8, 9, 10-win season. And you just like rained on my parade for 3 hours. And now I'm asking you to get me hyped up and make me believe in the falsehood that this could be a Super Bowl team, and you're not buying into it. So I don't know. I would just like a little bit more optimism out of you, even if it's fake.
It's not my job. Look, a couple things about that fateful day in the trailer at Summerfest, which is, by the way, a really nice trailer. It's not a Breaking Bad trailer. I mean, I just want people
not a trap house. Yeah, not a trap house.
Which I learned what that was on Sunday.
You did.
Look, I don't think at any point during that day I told you that Jordan Love is not going to be the guy. I don't think I ever said that.
You didn't.
He has become the guy and shown to be the guy sooner and even better than I expected this year. My greatest concerns about this team back on July 7th were there are too many young guys that aren't going to know what the hell they're doing, and they chose to move on from some veterans who I thought could have helped their cause. As it has turned out, they didn't need those veterans. Now, I would argue that Mercedes Lewis, instead of Royce Newman as the extra blocker when you wanted to go to a jumbo package, was probably superior to what they've had. And I would argue that you wouldn't have had to play Mercedes Lewis a ton of snaps, and his presence would have benefited those 3 rookie tight ends that they have. So, and he wouldn't have cost much. That's one spot where, Goody's argument was, hey, I don't want him taking snaps away from these young guys. And I can't dispute that because you look at where Luke Musgrave was at the point of his injury, and you look at what Tucker Kraft has done since, and both those guys have exploded. They have beaten the expectation for a young tight end in this league, where whether you were Mark Chmura or Matt LaFleur saying it's a really hard position to be successful at right away as a rookie. And they both far outkicked their expectations. Okay, so that's part of it. They've also overcome not having Aaron Jones. They have not won the way we thought their path to victory would be, which was run the ball well, play good defense. Now, I would argue that they haven't played as good a defense as we even thought early in the year when they were playing well enough to win games with their defense. I just think they played some really bad offenses. And I think that's one of the reasons why I have apprehension for the Packers about how this is going to go. If this game was in Green Bay and we'd seen how the Cowboys have been away from AT&T Stadium versus what they've been there, and I know the Detroit Lions did a pretty good job against them in the last outing. I don't expect Joe Barry to replicate that. But they have not won the way we expected. And I keep going back to Matt LaFleur, and the telling Jordan Love to let it rip and then realizing, hey, I got to let it rip as a play caller then if I'm going to tell him that. I think that was transformative. I think that was the turning point in the whole season. That's why he points to the Pittsburgh game, even though they lost. So those are all factors in why they are where they are today. But look, I had seen enough improvement from Jordan Love to think this was possible. I did not think it would happen in the last 8 games. I thought maybe he would play at this level in the last 3 games. And not even at this level. I mean, again, I know I've used this a bunch, but I think this crystallizes how ridiculously good he was on Sunday. He was 27 of 32 for 316 yards. That's 5 incompletions, no interceptions, 5 incompletions. And 2 of the 5 incompletions were touchdown passes that the receiver couldn't hold on to, right? One was and I'm not saying they weren't tough catches, But the Romeo throw and the Bo Melton throw were perfect throws. Like,
they were good balls.
He
yeah.
put it where only those two guys were going to catch it, and those were 2 of the 5 incompletions. So he was redonkulous, and I did not see him doing that at this point in his career. I didn't rule out the possibility of that, but and look, he's going to have some bumps in the road. One might be Sunday. There's going to be some next season when teams have a better book on who he is and what he does well and they study him. He's going to face some more challenges. They're going to have better ideas on how to defend him. But no, I echo Matt LaFleur's remark after Sunday's game. I don't think there's a whole lot of questions left about him.
No, I would agree. If he can play at this level, which, I don't know if I expect him to be this good all the time, but if he can maintain, 80% of what he's been the last 10 weeks, sign me up. Sign me up.
Match up what he's done, just quickly, match up what he's done in these 8 games. This is actually something that I was going to do later today, with what I just mentioned about Rodgers over that 8-game stretch to get them to the NFC Championship game. It's the numbers are almost exactly alike.
Really?
I think it was Rodgers with 16 touchdowns, no picks maybe over that stretch.
Okay.
But we have not seen this kind of a stretch of quarterbacking from many guys, and we've seen 2 Hall of Famers back to back.
That right there is a sentence that just gets me fired up. All right, 2 more things for you, Jason. Number 1, are you going to Dallas this weekend? Will you be in Dallas?
I'm not.
You are not.
I'm going to be at a huge 7th grade club volleyball tournament.
Okay.
And joining you, I would like to join you for Green Bay game day, at least partially, from the stands, because I think there might be a match going on.
Oh, great.
And then the remainder, I know Tauscha's done programs from the parking lot of his church before Christmas Eve services.
Yep.
But no, I will be here. If they advance, I think maybe then there's a different discussion to be had. But I'm not going to Big D. Mike McCarthy will be disappointed because he won't be able to say, I'm not in the mood for drama today, Jason, as I try to ask questions.
Oh man, I was really hoping we were going to get a Wilde McCarthy exchange after the game. I'm very disappointed, but that's neither here nor there. Do you think Brian Gudakunst would admit that this came together a lot faster than he expected, despite how adamant he was that the youth movement was the right direction to bring this franchise? Do you think he would admit that this has come together sooner than he expected?
I don't know. I'm going to ask him that after the season, though.
Fantastic.
Look, so I think I get a bit of a I think there's a misconception about my relationship with him. He and I, we came up on parallel tracks. He came up, obviously, on the scouting side. I came up covering the team. But we basically started almost the exact same time in our respective jobs. I've known him for a long time. I've liked him for a long time. I have not liked how he is. I'm big on admitting when you're wrong. I think that's a really important sign of character. And he, in my opinion, doesn't do that frequently enough in a job that there are times when you're wrong. At the same time, if he's not willing to say that this came together faster than he had hoped or dreamed, then I would ask, why did you trade Rasul Douglas?
Mm-hmm.
Because and this is one thing, this has been a pet peeve of mine about this. Everyone likes to say they traded him for a 3rd-round pick.
Yeah, they traded him.
They didn't trade him for a 3rd-round pick.
Traded a 5th with.
They traded Rasul Douglas and a 5th-round pick and got a 3rd-round pick in return. So they're moving up. I haven't done the math yet. We don't know what the compensatory picks are. But they're moving up 40, 50 picks, I guess, right? So, I mean, that doesn't strike me as an offer I can't refuse if I think I have a playoff team. But remember where they were. The trade deadline came 2 days after they lost 24-10 against the Vikings and looked like, since you like to swear on this podcast, shit on that in that game. So I don't, even if he says he saw this coming, I don't believe him. But again, that doesn't take away from the fact that he deserves a hell of a lot of credit for hitting on a lot of skill position players as a guy who historically his skill position selections were not very good. Right? Like
prior to this year,
the
no.
Amari Rogerses and the Jay Sternbergers and the Jamon Moores and, go up and down the list. Like, for him to, Wicks, Dobbs, I still think Watson's going to be a good player if he ever figures out this hamstring stuff. Yeah. I do. I'm not a doubter on him. Musgrave, Kraft, Reed, like that. It's a hell of a lot of talent to put together in 2 draft classes.
Yeah,
and so
no doubt.
I would never, ever take away the credit from him for doing that. I still think that it's important, though, because everyone loves revisionist history, to acknowledge that clearly he didn't think Jordan Love was ready either last year, or otherwise you trade Aaron Rodgers for a bucket load of picks to the Denver Broncos and to George Payton and to Nathaniel Hackett, and you give Jordan the keys and you say, hey, let's go through the growing pains together now with this team instead. And he didn't do that. Instead, he signed him to a 3-year, $150 million contract and paid him $50 million and put himself in a position to eat $41 million of cap space if he did move on from him after that. That is not the behavior of a general manager who was convinced his guy was ready to go. And again, I'm glad he was wrong. I'm glad I was wrong, because as Tausch loves to point out, I always say, I'm really happy for Jordan Love. Like, this is a dude that deserves to be happy and deserves all the success he's having. Like, he and I haven't talked much about this, but, like, I look at the girls, Maddie is going to be 14 on Saturday. And Sydney's going to be 13 in March.
Nice save, by the way. Go on.
Yeah, well, I know what her date of her birthday is. I didn't know what date Saturday or Sunday was. But Jordan Love was the same age as Maddie is when his dad died. And I think about, and I this is for a therapist if I ever get one. This is not for you. But I think about what that would do to our girls if something happened to me at this critical juncture of our lives and their lives. And I look at what Jordan Love accomplished in his life in spite of that tragedy happening to him. And look, Paula and I have dealt with our share of stuff, but I just look at that and go, there are so many people that wouldn't have been able to overcome that. And yes, I know he found solace on the football field and all those other things, but like, here's a guy who was like, his dad didn't come to a basketball game and he didn't know why, and it was because he was dead.
Jeez.
I don't know if I'm able to come back from that if I'm him.
Yeah.
And so whether it's that, and look, it doesn't, that in the scheme of, is he a good enough quarterback or not? We're not running, a boys' home here. We're running an NFL team, and that's nice that he's overcome that. But if he wasn't a good player, the Packers wouldn't keep him and say, well, we feel bad because of what you've been through in your life. He deserves every piece of happiness he's getting. I'm thrilled for him. I hope he continues down this path. I'm just really happy for the guy. And I think Matt LaFleur said it best, that, and you look at his teammates, he's really hard not to root for. It's not my job to root for him, so I don't root for him necessarily, but I am happy for him that he's had the success he's had.
No, that's a really good story, Jason. And obviously, to see the transition and the way the guys rallied around him versus, and you brought this up earlier, versus like Rodgers was this intimidating figure. And you told this great story on Sunday about Romeo Dobbs telling you last year, or right after Rodgers was traded, I learned a lot from him despite not really talking to him. And then he realized what he said to you. And now to see, I thought back to last year, we all overreacted to this clip of Devondre Campbell on some local show in Green Bay where he said, yeah, Jordan Love is better than most starting quarterbacks in the NFL. And I think most of us kind of laughed, like, yeah, cute, like defend your guy. And then Jair in the offseason, interrupting his locker room scrum and saying this is the best quarterback in the league, to see the way not only the offensive players but the entire team has rallied around him is just another cherry on top of how cool of a story Jordan Love has been and his rise to becoming the franchise guy for the Packers. It's just a really cool story all around.
But I want to make sure this is clear too. Like, this is not preordained. And just because Devondre Campbell thought that last year, Jordan Love did not play well during their October swoon. Now,
No.
Tausch gave me a lot of grief for saying that I saw glimpses of brilliance and flashes of brilliance, but I did. But they weren't consistent, and you can't just have the flashes because lots of quarterbacks have flashes.
Yep.
Now it's been consistent brilliance. And I'd be lying if I said I saw that coming. But you can't, all these, I don't love the people that are all like, told you so, told you he was going to be great, told you. Because the guy who drafted him didn't know that, the guy that coached him didn't know that, and they know a hell of a lot more than you do and I do. Because they're all around him a hell of a lot more.
But Jason,
so
hold on, Jason. Tweet from Alex Strouf on April 23rd, 2020. Ready for this? I don't love that the Packers traded up for Jordan Love. I love that they drafted Jordan Love. You got your third great quarterback in a row. Tell me I'm a genius.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. I think the audio cut out.
Yeah, that's what I thought. That's what I thought.
You're a genius,
yes!
Alex Strouf. You're a genius.
Thank you. I know. I'd like to think I know more than Goody, which clearly I do not. So.
I gotta take a shower again.
Okay.
After saying that.
I'll let you. I'll let you get to it. I've kept you way longer than I said I was
So
going to.
do you think they're gonna win? You think they're gonna win on Sunday?
I'm struggling. I'm kicking. I think they can, but they need to play really well on defense.
I think they can. I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either. But I'm not positive, and I don't want to say that because Hunter's a Cowboys fan. So.
Well, I'm sure he's convinced himself that his team's going to lose because he is such a defeatist attitude Cowboys fan that Hunter, I don't want to speak for you. So if I'm speaking out of turn here.
Real quick. We have some breaking news that just came through that I want to react to you with. Pete Carroll expected to be out as the head coach of the Seahawks. Didn't see that one coming.
I didn't hear what he said.
Pete Carroll is out as the Seahawks head coach.
Yeah, I saw that come across just now.
I can't say I saw that one coming. That's surprising.
I don't think Pete did either at first. Pete said after the game that he thought he'd be back, or he thinks he's going to be back right now. And then obviously the conversation went a different direction. Who would have thought that John Schneider would outlast him?
Yeah, true. John Schneider, he was with the Packers for a long time, wasn't he?
John Schneider?
Yeah. Or is he just a Green Bay guy?
Both. He worked for the Packers for a long time. He left right before the 2010 season, so he had to go get his own Super Bowl ring because he missed out on it with the Packers.
He did all right. Well, anyway. All right. Well, we will do this again right after the Packers win the Super Bowl is when we'll have you back, Jason.
I'll put it on the calendar.
Just so I can tell you I told you so. But seriously, always good catching up with you. I kept you way longer than I said I was going to. You bring some seriously valuable insight, and appreciate catching up with you. We'll do it again prior to the game on Sunday, buddy.
I knew you were going to keep me longer than the 20 minutes you promised. I built that into the plan. So thanks for having me. Go wash your jersey. You stink. I can smell you way over here.
I'm wearing my good cologne today. Be nice. It's the great Jason Wilde. You can find him on Twitter, which he loves, by the way, at Jason J. Wilde. Hear him each and every weekday with Packers Hall of Famer Mark Tauscher on Wilde and Tausch on ESPN Wisconsin. All right, time now for What Strouf Learned as we wrap up the program. And this is a weird one, man. This is a weird one. So I've been notified by multiple individuals today within the last couple of hours that a man by the name, who, by the way, Hunter, we need to book this guy. Promoter Roy Engelbrecht is his name. He has petitioned the NCAA for a brand new bowl game, which would be called, drum roll please, the Irrelevant Bowl.
I love it.
And what it would mean is that the two worst teams in college football would go head-to-head in the Irrelevant Bowl. And I must say, with the way that the bowl structure, the trajectory in which it is on, this becomes the next best thing to the 12-team playoff. Like, my priority rankings would go NCAA college football playoff, Irrelevant Bowl, number 2. Because it'd be crappy football that actually probably be pretty good. Because you put two horrible teams against each other, it might actually create good football. and good buzz around the game. And as you know, the name of this program, Mr. Irrelevant, like, I think they should put me in the booth for this game, or like make me the sideline reporter, or like, we need to get around this.
Or we could do the McAfee show style sidecast with it from the sideline.
See, now this is an idea. So we need to get a business meeting and an interview with Roy Engelbrecht. We need to have him on the program.
Absolutely.
Because I'm all in on this. Are you in on this?
Yes.
I think this is a brilliant idea. I think this is a brilliant idea. So I'm all in on the Irrelevant Bowl. I learned that is an idea, and it's an idea I need to be around. So whoever has a contact for Roy Engelbrecht, you let me know. We're getting this man on the program. We're going to have a business meeting with him on the side. We're going to get involved in the Irrelevant Bowl, Hunter. We are going to become a part of this petition to the NCAA, and we are going to make this happen. I couldn't be more fired up about the idea of an Irrelevant Bowl. So I've told this story before, but I really like bad sports. And what I mean by that is I am always for we cover high school sports, both of us do, Hunter. And you just had a game, and I won't say the teams, but you've had a game within the last couple of weeks where the combined record of the two teams was 6-17. Right? This was I think it was 3-8 and 3-7 or 3-9, it was something like that. Yep. Right? Like it was bad teams. But without knowing, I imagine the game ended up being pretty good.
Yeah, it was a close game the entire way through, and then one team pulled away, won by like 11 points. But it was like easily a 5-point game for the majority of the game. Loved it.
What I love doing on Tuesday nights, I love snuggling up on the couch and turning on the two worst teams in the Big East. You know, college hoops. I like bad sports because I think they create good sports. I'm all in on the Irrelevant Bowl.
That's why I watch Maction.
Right,
They're not great teams,
Thursday
but it is so fun.
Yes, bingo. That's a great example. So I think the Irrelevant Bowl would be terrific. We need to hash out, though. It needs to be like the two worst Power 5 teams, I would think, or Power 4, I guess, next year. Power 4 teams. It can't just be like, because you don't want, like, who are bad teams that are power. Like, you don't want
Georgia Southern
versus Ball State, right? Like, you don't want that. No. You want, like, I don't know, who's the worst team in the Big Ten this year? How bad was Rutgers?
It would have been probably – no, they made a bowl game.
Oh, they did make a bowl game. You're right. They were actually solid this year. I forgot that.
Yeah. Purdue was really bad. Michigan State.
Yeah, give me like Purdue and
Vanderbilt.
Yeah. Good cities, right? Both. Well, West Lafayette's not that great, but Nashville's great.
Yeah.
I think the Irrelevant Bowl could be something special. All right, that'll do it for us today. We're back with you Friday. I believe you and I are going to make a bet on the Packers-Cowboys game Friday. We will preview Cowboys-Packers a little bit more in depth coming up on Friday. I can't wait, man. I'm so excited. The Packers are in the playoffs.
Yeah, I'm still nervous about it. By the way, please keep them like PG-13. I'm going rogue here, Strouf, but in the YouTube comments, after the video, if you're watching this back, give us any suggestions for the bet. We're kind of struggling with that.
Yeah.
So even on Twitter or Facebook, we need some suggestions for what the loser of this bet should do, which will probably be me. By the way, I'm not shaving my beard. Just taking that off the table.
That's off?
Will not do it. The wife won't even allow that.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, that's a no-go from her.
Always love people chatting in on the YouTube chat as well. Big thanks to Peter. Mr. Death, that's a scary name. Bill, all of you for chiming in on YouTube. Thanks for hanging with us. We'll be back with you Friday beginning at 12:30 Central, 1:30 Eastern, previewing Packers-Cowboys. And I will just say this now. We're going to preview the rest of the NFL playoff slate because I love the NFL playoffs. It is my favorite time of year. It goes NFL playoffs 1, March Madness 2. You can pick what else comes in after that. I love this time of year. So we will be talking about all the matchups as well coming up on Friday. Look forward to talking to you then. This has been Mr. Relevant. I'm Alex Strouf.